republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
President Seacrest, Vice President McDermott,
Present.
Councilwoman Harding,
Present.
Hume. Here. Councilman Miller,
Here.
Stoner,
Here.
Whitcomb, Mayor Ritter,
Here.
Solicitor Thorne,
Here.
Engineer Rhodes,
Here.
Junior Councilperson DeFalco,
Here.
Chief Seacrest,
Present.
Chief Stotts,
Present.
Secretary Dennis.
Here. Actually, we have any guests this evening?
I don't believe so.
We'll go into citizens' comments and requests. The first request I'll make, and this is an odd request, any comments or questions regarding the land development plan for Butters? If you could hold those until later in the agenda, and we'll hear all those, and be able to hear from the developer at the same time. He'll answer any questions regarding that. If there are any questions on anything else, the floor is yours.
Richard Snyder, 338 West Main Street. They were talking about some tree that needed some addressing off our property, but walking my dogs in the park, there's a couple of trees that need some trimming before a wind blows it down on a jogger on the hiking path. And there's a stop sign, which I'll give you $1 if you can find it, at the end of Strawberry Lane. So I'll pass that on there, and thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
James Perry, 14 Kingswood Drive. I'm actually here on behalf of about 200 local kids. I'd like to see if the city could put in a skate plaza. I know this subject's probably been broached before. I'm hoping it's just not that the city doesn't want it, but there's some other reason that we can't do it. And I'm open to any suggestions or remarks from anybody of what those issues are. I can't begin to resolve them or overcome that obstacle unless I know. Does anyone, anything?
Your question was about a skate park?
A skate plaza.
I've been here 5 years, and there was some discussion when I first came on board about doing one, looking at different places in Memorial Park or other places around town. There was a very motivated group of individuals that came to the Recreation Board at the time, and I believe they even came to Borough Council to kind of talk about what their ideas were. And in fact, I even think some of the kids that were locals who were skateboarding around town came to the meeting to talk to Borough Council about doing one. I didn't sense, at least at the time, and I don't want to speak for Borough Council, an ultimate and total resistance to the issue. However, one of the things that was needed, of course, was financial backing from the borough in regards to doing that sort of project. And I think where we kind of left it at that time, now granted this is probably three and a half years ago at this point, maybe a little shorter than that, was that, you know, there are grants out there that the individuals were talking about going after. They were going to put some things together, and they never really materialized. So I think the long and short of the answer would be a place to put it, A, designating a place to put it, and B, finding the funding to do it. So, location and funding.
Is there a way to find out who initially tried to do this? Someone I could contact?
Yeah,
maybe
I
bounce
think it
ideas
was
off of?
the business owner who owns Fantastics on Main Street were
Okay.
two of the people that him and his wife, I think, were interested in doing it.
Okay.
And they had some traction. I mean, they were motivated. They had some people that were in here. But again, that was a couple years ago. But those were the two that I at least talked to.
Awesome. All right. Thank you.
I hope that was helpful.
One other thing, along with funding and location, the liability
Yeah.
for this would be a real strain if any of those children or young adults would be injured. Who's going to be liable?
Right. I've talked to other cities that have these type of things in them, and from what I've gathered, Parks and Recreation already has some sort of insurance that covers baseball fields and football fields and recreational activities like that. I would think it would just fall under a similar statute.
It would be, as Ann's speaking to, there would be an additional liability assumed by the municipality for putting something, because somebody can get hurt skateboarding.
Right.
As they can playing baseball or swimming or anything else like that. Truthfully, you know, when you have a pool in a municipal park, the liability on it is already pretty high because the risk of somebody drowning in a pool is there. A skate park would only add to that liability because somebody could be injured. Ann makes a good point. I think the other part, to piggyback on what Ann was saying too, is where we kind of left it was, once the facility is constructed, let's just say Memorial Park or Crozier Park, wherever, the discussion on the ongoing maintenance of the facility was kind of brought on the table. Was there going to be a fee associated with it? Is it going to be kind of an enclosed, fenced-in area which people could go, and a revenue generator for the municipality, and/or if it generates revenue, is it going to cover the cost of maintenance of the facility? Those were kind of the initial dialogues that we were having that just kind of fizzled. So if you have interest, I mean, I don't have any problems. I don't think Borough Council had any problems talking about those things, but I think those were some of the questions that were brought up at the time.
Okay, and what's the appropriate venue for me to discuss that?
I think you would start with the Recreation Board if you wanted to talk to them about the overall idea of it. You know, find a place in the park where you would think it would work, or if it's not in the park, somewhere else in the borough that there's available land, then come to Borough Council and talk about it. But I think the Rec Board is a recommending body to Borough Council. And so if you wanted to go to them with kind of your ideas and thoughts on how it would work, then ultimately they would be the recommending body to Borough Council. Then Borough Council would have a crack at the questions of, as Ms. Harding brought up, you know, the liability associated with it, where it was going to go, how are we going to fund it, are we going to go after DCD, DCNR grants, what's the avenue that's there? So,
Okay.
that's a lot, I apologize.
No, I got it all. Thank you.
Okay,
Wasn't safety a major issue?
what's that?
Wasn't the safety of the people in town an issue too? Because of them,
To say like people skateboarding in town, or?
yeah. When it first came up, wasn't the safety issue mainly,
Like getting them off the street, or?
did they go
Give-
out
give
in
them
front
a
of
central-
cars or people?
Right, and I think that was the discussion by the people at Fantastic, but I don't want to put words in their mouth because it was a while ago, but that to get them off the street and get them into a centralized location would be better for everybody involved, so.
Any other comments?
I just thought of this because I'm tired of driving up the alley.
Your name?
Sue Ann Brenner, 21 West Simpson Street. The alley between Grace United Methodist Church and the parsonage, Little Stone Parsonage, is like nothing but potholes. And it's been that way for quite a while. And my car, you know, I know I can go any other way too, which I usually do, but that alley is traveled in too extreme. As a shortcut to Keller Street is, you know, and there's a lot of people that have garages. But anyway, I was wondering if there's any plan in maybe, like, not just filling in the holes, because they've done that like 5 times now. And I didn't know if they had any plans of kind of paving that in the near future.
Candidly, the way we do it, when I discuss it and make recommendations to Borough Council, or Council makes recommendations to me on how to budget funds for paving, we look at high traffic areas that are in the worst need of repair. Alleys fall below that, so I can tell you that it would be quite a while before an alley would probably be paved.
Okay. Then the street directly across from my beauty salon is not an alley, that's a street. Coming up from, my beauty shop is 21 West Simpson Street.
Okay.
And as I look out my front door, it's the alley that goes down to Main Street, cross Locust, can't explain it any other way. That was paved.
Yeah, it was microsurfaced as part of the project that we did. We microsurfaced all the streets that
Okay.
were able to use that product between Main and Simpson, because PennDOT was gonna pave Main and Simpson, so there was kind of some geometry associated.
Yeah, but that was paved a couple years ago.
Oh, well, then I don't.
Okay.
That was paid before you got on that.
Okay,
She's talking one retreat, a little bit of
I
side.
mean, I don't know if that's an alley or if that's,
Bath and Hughes.
they consider that a street. It's not Strawberry.
Right beside Sundays.
Okay.
Goes all the way up. That was paved,
Is that Lamont
Yeah.
Avenue? Okay. I live on Kings Alley, or Kings, you know, that's where my back, I own a salon, and my ladies have to get back there to park. And I mean to tell you, there's big holes there, big holes. Because the trash truck makes big holes, okay? I'm just making you aware of that.
Any other public comment? 2013. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Councilman White makes the motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Councilman White seconds. Are there any questions, changes, or additions? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Additions to the committee portion of the agenda.
We'll have 2 additional action items, but not as part of this committee portion.
Move to approve the committee agenda.
Make a motion.
Motion made. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
A second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Standing committees of Borough Council, Community and Economic Development Council, and news.
Now, I seem to be out of the loop with that group. I used to always receive an agenda and minutes following the meeting, and that stopped several months ago, and I asked to please have my mailing addressed, and I received, in response to that, then I did receive some, but no longer, it didn't resume after that. So I think we'll need to talk with Pat Dennis about what's going on with that group.
Oh, the Downtown Mechanicsburg Board?
Yes.
Well, we've kind of begun a new phase within the organization of meeting in our separate committees. Bob Burek, who's the president of the organization, has kind of broken us up into 4 or 5 different sub-entities where we're all focused on different things, ranging from Kimberly King, who's on Main Street in charge of marketing and promotions. Rebecca and I have met and talked about some downtown landscaping issues. John Anthony and a couple of individuals are involved in the design committee. So we basically have broken into different subcommittees, and we're now formulating what we'd like to do for the remainder of the year and into next year. So we're kind of in a planning process right now within our own little subgroups of which we report back to the board. So.
Good. Well, we'll count on you.
Oh, no problem. No problem.
Thank you.
No problem.
Report to downtown coordinator, Rebecca.
Good evening. And you all have a copy of my report. Under About Face, Seymour and Tiffany Levine own the property at 48 West Main Street. This is the property that had the bad fire in February of 2011. I'm working with them on an About Face application to paint the front exterior of the building with a 3-color palette. And we have an estimate for that work, so I'm anticipating an application from that very soon. I spoke with her yesterday about that. Richard Riley is now officially the owner of the building where Metropolis Collective is now. It used to be Fairy Godmother, so he's now officially Mayor Ritter's neighbor. They're owning the building. Under business and property updates, I'm working with the Saruji sisters. They have the Eye Candy conglomerate of businesses, which include Eye Candy Accessories, Eye Candy Special Events, and Eye Candy LLC. They're looking for a property, and their preference is Mechanicsburg, to have their accessory store and their special events business all in one. And we have a couple ideas there. They've looked at a few places, and I'm taking them around to look at a few more next week. David Alvey, who owns 16 South Market Street, that's the property right next to Civil War and More, is going to be doing some modifications to the exterior of that building, the upper floor, but in particular the storefront, and that's available as well. 243, 245 East Main Street, this is the property that Mark Walker owned at the corner of East Main and Walnut Street. That is now officially sold. And the next point, the Best Kept Secrets Tour. You may have heard of this. This is a really nice event that they hold in Lancaster, Lebanon, Berks, and Montgomery counties. It's a business where for 2 weeks, a couple times during the year, several businesses are involved, and you buy a ticket. It's more like a passport. You can go visit these businesses. They have special events. You get gifts. You get discounts. They have workshops. They really slobber all over their customers. We're looking to bring that to Cumberland County, and we're meeting with the owners of that business to determine whether or not we want to do it as they do it. We want to come up with some sort of a hybrid, or customize it and do something all on our own. So I'm working with the Cumberland County Visitors Bureau on that. We've already talked about it, and we have a conference call related to that, another call about that next week. We have a number of businesses across Cumberland County who are interested in participating, and Susanna Reppert from Rosemary House in particular is interested. And she's led me to a couple businesses who are on the Berks and Lancaster tour. who have done really well with it. The businesses rotate from tour to tour, so it's not always the same businesses, and they are the highest quality businesses that you're showcasing across the county. The Land Partnership Grant, we have good news for Mechanicsburg. At the last meeting, I mentioned that we were recommending the baseball fields project at Memorial Park for $26,000 in funding. We were actually able to find a little bit more in funding than we had anticipated originally, and that was approved by the county commissioners just after our last meeting. The 2014 Community Development Block Grants announcements went out. I'm sure you received that already. Those applications are due September 4th, and I have a list here of some of the eligible activities. What questions do you have for me? What are you hearing? Anything? Don't be shy. Well, thank you very much.
Okay, for instance, the first issue we have is discussion on Upper Island Township Comprehensive Plan Review. I was at the Planning Commission meeting where they discussed this in some detail as far as where the plan pushes traffic, mainly into borough roads such as Allendale Road and on South Market Street, where they also are proposing some other modifications. It's the board's recommendation and Patrick's recommendation that we possibly send them a memorandum or a letter stating our concerns and asking for additional information, additional meeting.
Right, that's exactly right.
So if we have some kind of concurrence on council, we could request that. Is there any objection to doing that?
Well, I support that very much. I was talking with a commissioner from Lower Allen, and Upper Allen is asking Lower Allen to work with them for that road. I don't know the name of it. It's by the old Coca-Cola plant.
Gettysburg Road.
And apparently years ago, or so they say, when that industrial park was being developed in Upper Allen, that Lower Allen said, you know, maybe we should think about having access out to 114. Well, nothing came of that. But that is a terrible, the flooding there is just terrible, and it's going to be a very expensive thing. And it's really Upper Allen's businesses that are using that road, so I think we need to be very wary about what may happen to Allendale.
We do, especially with the changes that they proposed on Allendale, where that road kind of bends and goes over the hill, and they want to make that more easily traveled by trucks. And that's not good for the road.
Considering if in the next 2 to 3 years we have somebody submit a land development plan again for the Hess plan, it could require some significant modifications.
Right.
And some of the things that, as Councilman Miller said, in their comp plan, Upper Allen's comp plan talks about some re-signalization of some areas around Shepherdstown Road and some things that the borough really should be a part of, because it's going to affect traffic patterns coming in and out of the borough. So even if it's just, this is the genesis of us having a sit-down conversation, I think Borough Council, or, you know, I think it's just another, like we did with the storm sewer project, it may be an opportunity for Borough Council to meet with their commissioners and express our concerns. So when they move through their plan, we're involved, and we're not coming on the short end of the stick after the fact.
Yeah.
No, I think that'd be a very, very good idea.
Pat, do we know timeframe wise what Upper Allen is working on?
I do not.
Okay.
I'm not sure. I think this is
Just
a
preliminary?
little preliminary, but yeah, I think that we
I know
should
they
probably-
said last time I talked to them, they've been working on this for 2 or 3 years now, so
Yeah.
they've been working on it, and I don't think they even have a time frame. I know they had some hearings on it already, public hearings as of far, I'm not sure how far along they are in the public hearings phases on it.
I'll draft something up, and it's on the agenda for you to take action on, so once we take action on it, I'll draft something up for council's review, and I'll send it over to Mr. Zekas. Brown.
The next was a discussion on Recreation Department finances and accounting procedures. I had this as an agenda item out of concern that we had some late bills that were not being paid, and President Segrist isn't here to discuss his concerns, but I just wanted to make that aware and make the committee aware that we are going to work on this. We're going to work with staff on this issue. So that's all I have.
review.
Very good.
Very good, thank you. Municipal and community outreach, council members received a lot of information that had been submitted for the Borough newsletter. Thanks to all who submitted recommendations, suggestions, questions. If there's any concerns, speak now. Otherwise, if there's no objections or any concerns, we can get it to the printer tomorrow and hopefully be on time.
I just have a few grammatical corrections to the submission that I made. I'll give them to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just give them to us.
And assuming this is going to happen, when can we expect it to be mailed?
The week of
September
September
15th. Okay, thank
That
you.
is contingent on the advertisers getting the copy to the hometown press.
So that's the earliest? Okay,
We're ready to go with whatever changes.
okay,
And I think
okay.
some of what was submitted or altered, I think has been altered as a result of that. We're looking essentially at like right after Labor Day, it has been.
So it's, the earliest is September 15th.
And we also had a recommendation from staff, I guess, on the cover, on the Harbor Awards, I believe is the cover. That's good that way.
Yeah, the Hart's been working on that.
That's an excellent cover, yeah.
It really is. Very nice, okay, thank you. Val, yeah.
Yes, we will be meeting with the website consultant to finalize a rollout plan and date, so we're working on that. That should be soon, very soon.
Thank you very much for your efforts with that. Property Parks and Recreation, I guess we'll go over that.
No.
Oops, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Well, back a year ago, I mentioned one thing that the borough received a grant from the Cumberland County Land Partnership Program for the Memorial Park ball field for upgrades, the dugouts and backstops and that kind of stuff. Also, I always start with Pat and some members of the rec board working with the budget for this year on some of the stuff that needs maintenance on some of the stuff and replacement and some of the items they want to see possible put in the budget for next year. That's all I have right now. Meeting is next week.
It's probably not going to happen.
Yeah, I just got, it just went through my phone.
But I'll send out a formal email tomorrow, but I'll send out a draft agenda just so we get on the same.
Yeah, I just got it on my phone, so I got it. That's all I have.
Safety, is there anything you want to discuss on this, or?
Other than we had to modify, and Lisa can speak to this as well, we wanted to discuss the proposed ordinance changes in regards to the parking issues that we were having on Williams Grove Road. There was some discussion about extending it farther to, is it Maplewood?
No, actually cutting it back.
Cutting it back. So that's basically pretty much all this is.
Worked with the chief, and we advertised based on some preliminary guidance, but upon subsequent investigation, suggestion for modification of that. We advertised the Williams Grove Road north and south westbound from South Broad Street to the Borough line, and limiting that Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. in coordination with the school schedule. So if we are going to be changing that location-wise, I think that would be a significant change. We'd have to re-advertise the ordinance if that's the inclination of council, or if council wants to move forward with as it is advertised. That would be and maybe the chief could speak to what the suggestion.
Well, the recommendation for the change came from the highway department to control the overall cost for the amount of signs that would need to be posted in the area. After that meeting, Head Sergeant Dyer reevaluated that and believes that the site distance problems can still be adequately addressed if we go to Maplewood. Obviously, it's council's consideration or discretion upon advice of the solicitor. If we only post the area from Maplewood to the borough line, that's still within the ordinance as it would be written. If we don't post from Maplewood to...
Wait, why do you mean Maplewood?
I'm sorry? Am I not?
It's Maplewood? I thought it was Williams Grove. What are we talking about?
I'm sorry, from Broad Street. I said Williams Grove. I meant Williams Grove Road instead of going all the way up to Broad Street. I'm sorry. Okay, thank you for that. The ordinance as it was advertised was Broad Street to the Borough line on Williams Grove Road. The Highway Department recommended as a cost-saving measure to hold down the cost of signs only go from Maplewood to the Borough line. So the section between, on Williams Grove Road between Maplewood and Broad would not be posted. Now, again, any ordinance is only effective if you post signs. So if we only post Maplewood to the Borough line, we can enforce that with the ordinance as is, but I will clearly defer to council's discretion and the solicitor on that, whether we want to go through the re-advertising costs. Clearly in the vehicle code, if it's not posted, we can't enforce. So, question whether council wants to save that money for the signs, want to save that money for the re-advertising, or just
What's
want
the
to spend the
difference?
money and do everything.
What's the difference, a sign versus re-advertising?
Huh?
What's
I don't know the
difference?
cost. The highway department would have to provide the cost, the sign cost. I'm sorry, I do not know that.
If we would re-advertise, I think the earliest we would be able to take action, or council would take action with the new modification here would be I guess it would be the first meeting in September, because even if we would advertise it tomorrow, I don't think we would have the.
So we'd still miss the first week of school.
Yeah, I believe it's 25th of August, I think that's right, the first day.
It may be prudent to not, because to re-advertise will cost money. Mr. Yinger, unfortunately, I was out last week with some personal issues. Mr. Yinger and I have not specifically discussed the actual financial ramifications. That's Mr. Yinger's opinion on the cost savings that's there. Perhaps to stay on course with this, if council's comfortable, as Chief said, and he's correct, it's a matter of where we sign it, and if we're going to modify the ordinance, we can modify the ordinance, stay on track with that, and then we can buy the signs as we see fit with the
And we enforce where we
of
sign.
the budget, and then I can make a decision and come back to Borough Council with an additional recommendation if we want to purchase more signs as is.
I'd rather move ahead with it. And if I'm thinking correctly, I don't think that Maplewood is very far beyond Broad.
7,500 yards, give or take, something like
Maybe
that.
more than I was envisioning.
So it may be prudent to stay on course, and then whatever we do, when I can get to a substantial difference, because my opinion on this, as Mr. Yinger, is this is going off his opinion based upon the average cost of signs, but we don't know exactly how many signs that's going to be yet. I can get you a hard figure for you to make a decision if we want to extend that to hold it moving forward.
I'm fine with moving forward.
I think this is an agenda item.
The other issue on the agenda is a discussion on a handicap parking permit for Ruth Hamaker, 111 West Cougar Street. This would be council's first crack at the new way we do it. We put our handicap parking permits together. It is on the agenda for you to take action on, but this is basically our attempt at changing things and making it more easy for you to take a look at what we do and how we're doing it, and if you're comfortable with it, then it's on the agenda for you to take action on.
Is everybody satisfied with the application, the way it was laid out? I did find the schematic helpful.
Yes.
Going through it is definitely a lot more information
Yes.
for council to picture when you're making a decision on these things. I agree. Okay, that's it.
Are there any agenda additions for action?
Chief, do we have additions to the agenda?
Yes, there are two. Chief has one and I have one. Consideration and possible action to approve the special event application for the Rosemary House Fairy Festival on September 7th and 8th, 2013, subject to the conditions on the special event worksheet. And the second addition we will have to the agenda, I put a little memo as well as a small bid document that was put together by, or bid award put together by Benoni Associates. I would like to put discussion and possible action on the award of the contract for the Walnut Street and North Market Street crosswalk on the agenda as well. Benoni has certified the bids. We only had one bid, and it came in actually quite lower than what our initial discussions with Pensy were for that crosswalk. So money saved there. So those are the two agenda additions.
Are there any further additions to the agenda? Hearing no further additions, is there approval for the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second it.
Have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Solicitor, I'll ask for your vote on this next, how best to proceed for this first item.
Do we have a representative here for the applicant or the others forums folks?
Yes.
Well, as far as the procedure, maybe we could turn it over to the engineer just to go over procedurally where we are. Council has already received packets, but these folks in the audience have not. We, just as far as edification, this is a continuation of the application process. If the citizens would recall, there was a conditional use hearing, and that application was acted upon by council earlier this spring, and now it's moved on to the land development plan, which is the formal enactment to be taken by this body. It's been reviewed, Mr. Dennis, by our planning commission with a recommendation consistent with our engineer for certain items to be addressed, and engineer can speak to those. And additionally, I understand the county planning commission has also reviewed with a recommendation of a conditional approval, pending some other further approvals by some PennDOT or some other state agencies. Is that correct?
County Conservation District.
County Conservation, excuse me. And I did see, sir, can you identify yourself for the record?
Yes, Neil Metzger,
Okay.
LSC Design, do site design and permitting for riders.
Okay. And in the packet, council had received a updated correspondence which addressed the engineer's comments following or consistent with the planning commission meeting. One thing I would note that it said about the conservation was, I think that might have been a typo. There was a Dauphin County, you submitted it. It's clearly Cumberland County for that, so just for the council's edification. So I'll turn it over to the engineer to address perhaps some of the points for procedure. There's two waivers that are pending, council. One is a waiver of the a preliminary plan, is that correct?
Correct.
And the other is waiver speaks to, is it the stormwater?
It's a waiver of how we calculate the pre-development stormwater. Our ordinance would require you to take a site back to meadow. Of course, that site was completely paved prior to the project, so they're requesting not to do that requirement of the ordinance. I'm granting that waiver also.
Contained in the packet is Pannoni's, our engineer's recommendation for certain conditions to be imposed upon the developer, and seeking any sort of action concerning approval as presented. You will also note on the front page of the plan, which we have a copy here for the audience if they want to review that, is an incorporation of the special conditions that were ordered by way of the conditional use decision. For example, the requirement about the shading of the light fixtures, no backlighting, etc. Those enumerated requirements are contained on the face of the document for clarification. So maybe with that, if you want to, any further commentary from the engineer?
I guess I'll start off with, based on your response letter, I assume you're okay with our comments at this point. I don't have anything that you have any concern with.
Yes, we're fine. We feel that we can address all of the, well, there are a few remaining outstanding comments.
The waivers were already reviewed by the solicitor. Unless you have specific comments about Greg's remaining comments, it's really cleanup items at this point on the list. They are requesting to pay a fee in lieu of contribution to improvements for anticipated traffic signalization timing for the 2023 impacts. And we suggested, I think, through email, an amount of $7,500. I don't know if you've thought about that and agree with that number.
We've discussed it with Tim Rudders here as well, representing Rudders, and that is an acceptable amount.
So that could be added to the motion if that is the like of the council.
At the point when motion is taken, I would suggest just two phases. We do the phase for motion with regard to the two waivers that are requested, and then move on to the actual land development plan as based on any conditions placed by our engineer. So, Mr. President, if you want to turn over to public comment or questions.
Earlier in the evening, I asked public comments and questions regarding this particular issue that's held until now. If anyone has any questions or comments, now's the time to be heard. Hearing none. The item, I guess, the agenda item, discussion of possible action on land development plan.
With regard to the two waivers by the applicant, that would be the motion.
Okay, that would be the motion this evening.
So the first item we're on is the waivers.
Yes.
Whether or not to grant them the two waivers. I'll make a motion that Borough Council grant the two waivers as designated by the Planning Commission and approved and recommended by the Planning Commission. One, the waiver for a preliminary plan application, and the waiver for 100% of the existing impervious area shall be considered meadow in the volume control calculations. A waiver from those two items.
I'll second that motion.
Motion by Councilman Miller, second by Councilwoman Hughes. Are there any questions on this motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? You guys have it. Second motion.
Second motion I suggest is consideration of a conditional approval based on the conditions outlined in our engineer's letter dated, I don't have the date of that letter.
July 25th.
July 25th, to include the reference to the $7,500 as the fee in lieu of for the calibrations. Is that correct?
That's a good word.
Okay. Does the applicant understand what the solicitor said, calibrations?
Correct. Yes.
It's number 5 under letter B.
Is there a motion?
What was the amount again?
7,500.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion for approval subject to the conditions in the engineer's memorandum of July 25th, 2013.
Will I hear a second?
I will second that.
Councilman Miller makes the motion, Councilwoman Harding seconds the motion. Are there any questions or further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Discussion and possible action on ordinance 3135, setting parking restrictions on Williams Grove Road.
I'll make a motion that we adopt that.
Councilman Hughes makes a motion, do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Councilman Miller seconds. Are there any questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Discussion and possible action to make the recommendation noted by the Planning Commission in their memo on July 23rd, 2013 to Upper Allen Township regarding their comprehensive plan.
I'll make a motion.
Councilman Miller moves, do I hear a second?
Second.
Councilman Stoner seconds. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Discussion and possible action on the handicap parking space application of Ruth E. Hammaker, 111 West Hoover Street.
Do I hear a motion?
Motion to deny.
I'll second the motion to deny as the application was recommended for denial by the police department.
Councilwoman Hughes makes the recommendation to deny. Councilman Miller seconds. Any questions?
Thank you to the borough's intern for taking the pictures and organizing it.
Yes, that was very helpful, very helpful.
I'll just add, just for the record, that the recommendation for denial was from the
Codes and zoning department.
yeah, code and zoning, as well as Chief Spots, is that correct?
Correct.
All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Discussion and possible action to appoint Patrick McKinney of 53 West Main Street to the vacant seat on the Environmental Advisory Council for the balance of a 3-year term to expire December 31st, 2014.
I'll make the motion for appointment.
Councilman Miller moves. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Councilman McCarty seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor? Say aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it.
Consideration and possible action to approve the special event application for the Rosemary House Berry Festival on September 7th and 8th, 2013, subject to the conditions on the special event worksheet.
I'll make that motion.
Councilman McCarty moves. Do I hear a second?
I'll second the motion.
Councilman Miller seconds the motion. Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Discussion and possible action on the Walnut Street and North Market Street crosswalks. As I said, before you take action on it, Ryan was generous enough to provide council with a bid breakout for the low bidder for this particular project. This involves putting the imprinted crosswalks at the intersection of Walnut and Main Street, as well as cleaning up and replacing the one that is on North Market Street. To give you a kind of discussion point for how low this got down, when we first talked to Pensy about doing this work for us, they were going to charge us $90 a square yard, and then we got it for $32 a square yard. So bidding it out in this situation saved us some money.
Good. Very much for that. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion, accept the bid.
Councilman Stoner moves. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Are there any citizens' comments? Thank you very much again for coming this evening. Any other business?
Just one thing. Just let council and the audience know, as most people are aware, the borough has an emergency alert system through Global Connect. Global Connect was recently bought out by Code Red Emergency Communications Network. Everything's going to work the same, but you'll see a new logo up on our website probably very soon. They're transferring the database over into Code Red's proprietary software. One nice additional feature that Code Red offers that Global Connect did not is the ability, if you want to get severe weather alerts to your any phone number or to your mobile devices. And considering some of the torrential rains we've had recently, that's not a bad thing. But just so you see, it'll work essentially the same as it did before, just a different company.
Executive session.
I don't particularly have anything.
I have a question.
Yes,
if I may. What is really wrong with the streets that have to be repaved? And how was this discovered?
Boy, this is tricky. That's a tricky question.
Well, everybody asks.
I understand that. Somebody affiliated with the project that works for a company and/or companies working on paving the project, they may have jumped the gun a scotch with some of the information that they dispersed, and thus got dispersed accordingly. So my logic, using some sort of logic here, you saw that some of the intersections, like at Main and Market, were torn up today.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about having to repay from
Well,
Walnut.
and I'm
Is
answering
this
your
part
question.
of it?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
I'll be patient.
Yes, my guess would be, since they're digging out portions of Main Street to put those imprinted crosswalks in, my guess is they would not be back in to again tear them out to pave over it. But that being said, I sent an email this morning that said, can I have any information? I have a council meeting tonight, and we don't have answers. So the answer that I'm giving you is a long-winded, I don't know, but it may be nothing, but the minute I find out something, I'll let everybody know. But somebody who works for another organization dispersed information to kind of give everybody a heads up, and I don't necessarily
Isn't there
think he had.
possible litigation involved?
What's that?
Isn't there possible litigation involved? with
I
this?
don't know. The best that I have is that the person may have not had the authority to speak on the particular issue as of yet, was trying to be a nice person, and in the no good deed goes unpunished sort of things, everybody tries to get the information out because it is massively confusing and annoying to have to deal with that, and that may not be concrete yet, so.
Concrete's good. Thank you.
Try and answer that.
No, just what I said about curb redneck. No, thanks.
No, I had my question.
We'll be adjourning later to executive session with no actions taken. I have nothing further. Mr. Solicitor?
One thing, Mr. Vice President, today we finished up the annual pump test on our core pumpers. We'll be getting the results back in about a week to 10 days. It seemed as though that all four were successfully tested without any serious problems. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming. I'm sorry, do I hear a motion?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Thank you.